I'm Dave Anthony, and this is Fox News.
Lawrence County depends on WDXE News, on the air since 1951. This is The Legend. 105.3, 95.3, WDXE.
That's us, WDXE, and it's time for the Rent Right and First Class Charter Hour. Our guest host today is Chris Davis. Chris, how are you, buddy?
Good, Jeff. How are you?
You made it through the weekend?
We had a fantastic long weekend.
Long weekend, yeah. Everybody was kind of down and shut down for Labor Day weekend and eating ribs.
Well, I didn't have any ribs, but man, it does sound good. I did hear what did you say? It was baby back rib?
Yeah, baby back
rib day, and I missed that.
Yeah. Well, I did.
I didn't mean to celebrate, but I definitely had ribs this weekend. So
there you go. Good deal. And he has a guest today, Ryan Egley, of course, a familiar name and maybe not so familiar face, but
sure,
familiar name anyway,
yep.
For sure.
Yep.
But of course, the hour is brought to you by Rent Right. A lot of good stuff going on over there in First Class Charter. And we were talking about before we got on the air, Chris. Your role there is what, really?
So officially, my role is business development.
Yes.
My goal and kind of the vision is for me to grow the business back to where we were pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And we're still recovering in our industry from that. Now it doesn't look. It looks like we're all well and past it, but we are still growing and building back on top of. Yeah. Some of those things that we dealt with back then.
Well, we still hear people having COVID. Of course,
sure.
It's. Thank the Lord, it doesn't seem to be the severe thing that it once was.
Absolutely.
But there, even at present, I hear people that are diagnosed positive with it. So
I think we've gotten to the point where we know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's
good. And that's good.
We're past that.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Don't want to happen anything like that to happen again. Actually,
Amen. That's right.
Good deal. Well, Ryan is in the house, and I don't know exactly what you do, Ryan. I'm just kidding.
I wish I could explain it. No,
I'm just kidding. Ryan, of course, with the Chamber of Commerce, and has been doing a great job, by the way.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that, and it's only possible because of our members like First Class Charter, like the radio station here. We're celebrating our 75th year in business as an organization, and it's been a wild ride. And so it's been, especially the last few years, we're trying to just get that slice of the Middle Tennessee growth to make sure that our businesses, one, can recover from a few years ago, but also keep that momentum going as far as growth goes. And,
sure.
And then it has implications further than that, to our community, to our schools, and most importantly to our people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
A lot of buzz going around. Buddy.
Yeah. A lot of buzz. A lot of things happening in Lawrence County.
Yep.
We talk about the industry we're bringing in, and it's just so funny to me to see how Lawrence County, the diversity across the entire county.
Yep.
Within just a few miles, we're building Magna is building a huge modern facility for vehicle parts.
Yep.
For the most modern vehicle parts. And within just a few miles, we have our Amish community.
Yeah.
It's the simplest of lifestyles. So it's just so unique.
That's right.
And having been up at the auction, at the Plyboy auction yesterday, which there were a ton of people
That's
up there.
awesome.
And the license plates held from counties and
states around,
states
I'm sure.
all around. Yeah, so there were folks from everywhere. So it was really good. So you guys, we feel like you're doing a great job drawing those industries in.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit. So we know everybody talks about the Chamber of Commerce, right? They walk out on a pretty day and they go, oh, it's the Chamber of Commerce kind of day.
That's right. Right.
So tell us about the Lawrence County Chamber
Sure.
of Commerce and what you guys do.
Yeah, so as mentioned, we are a 75-year-old organization, and we were started as a membership organization, similar to a civic club, but for businesses and business leaders. Its sole purpose was so that business leaders can speak into how the community grows and develops. Over time, that has shifted, and we've taken on different types of things. But before I get into that, it's important to note that a chamber of commerce in every community is going to be very different based on whatever the community or the business community wants. Our chamber of commerce looks very different than that in Giles County, looks very different than that in Lincoln County. We do share a lot of similarities with, let's say, Williamson and Murray and Putnam and Madison County. But by and large, as the community changes, the organization needs to change too. And I'm very grateful that the board of directors and our local leadership, they've all said, hey, let's definitely change. Let's try to stay ahead of things and be as progressive as we can in what I guess the industry is, that is the Chamber of Commerce. So we do three primary things at our Chamber of Commerce. The first, of course, being economic development. Now, economic development is when we well, I'll say it like when I go in and talk into the schools. So, Jeff, I have a question for you. When I say the word economy, what word comes to mind?
Economy?
Economy.
Well, gosh,
one word.
it's money.
Money, exactly. And Chris, when I
Yeah.
say the word develop, what word comes to mind?
Growth.
Growth. So that's exactly right. So when I say economic development, the idea is we want to grow money. And now, of course, money doesn't grow on trees. So how do you grow money in a community? Well, you have to attract it, and we do that with our economic development through. Really bringing in more manufacturing operations has historically been how we do that. But today it's changing a little bit to be more focused on not just manufacturing, but the retail amenities and opportunities, the residential development side of the world, and also the tourism marketing and the tourism development part of the world too, because that's also money coming into our community, as you referenced with Plowboy Produce. So number one is economic development. Number two is that tourism marketing piece. And the Chamber manages a brand called Visit Lawrenceburg. You may have noticed some wayfinding signage on the highway here in Lawrenceburg and down in Loretto to help point tourists to various assets off of the main highways. Our five main pillars of tourism include David Crockett State Park, Tennessee's Amish country, outdoor experiences, family experiences, and of course our annual events. Annual events, of course, the largest one coming up is the Middle Tennessee District Fair, and then everything from rodeos to whatever happens at the Old Crockett Theater, at the Keystone. So there are events that our community puts on. And it's important to note the Chamber does not put those events on. We just help market them because we know that getting the tourist here matters. And so that's number one and two, economic development, tourism, marketing. And then the third thing is community development. What does that mean? Glad you asked. So the idea that we want buy-in from people, especially the business community. So we have membership. So that's part of the community. But we've expanded that to even include our new young professionals group, which has now been in existence for a year. It includes our Leadership Lawrence programming, which helps develop the next generation of leaders. That program is going on, I think it's 28th or 29th year this year. So trying to make sure that we're informing people of what's going on in the community, keeping them involved. As a new business is open, we want the community to come celebrate them. So we have ribbon cuttings and we have groundbreakings, and we have open houses and monthly chamber coffees. In fact, our next chamber coffee is Thursday at the shelter because we're going into, it is the shelter. Yeah, it is the shelter. I always get those confused with Kids Place. They're always in March, in the early part of the year. But then also Thursday evening, we're having our Young Professionals event at Heine's Barbecue. So we're always trying to get people together and connect people and build bridges. So going back to your original question, what is a Chamber of Commerce? Well, there's a lot of different ways to answer that, but I hope that the message that comes across is that we build bridges and we connect people.
I like that. That's probably the best description I've heard in a long time. Building bridges and connecting people, because that's one of the biggest things that we see here is we have a community full of small businesses.
Yep.
And everybody loves the small businesses, and they
Yep.
the shop local and,
Yep.
and things like that. And then we bring in the larger
Yep.
industries.
Yep.
That connect. We want it all
Sure.
to connect, obviously,
That's
and that's
right.
the same thing from a small business standpoint. We want to
Sure.
see that connection.
Yeah.
And I know for Jeff and his real estate market, it's the same thing. It really connects those.
Yep.
Now that's one of the and you talked about one of the unique things, and I call it unique because I came here from Kentucky,
Yep.
Bullitt County, Kentucky, served on the board of the chamber
Yep.
there, and it was strictly business related.
Yep.
The county ran the tourism, and the
Yep.
county ran economic development.
Yep.
So for that all to be under the chamber's purview is pretty unique from my standpoint.
Yeah,
So I think
sure.
it's really cool.
And that's very intentional. It's important to note all of the mayors, so whether it's Lawrenceburg, Loretto, St. Joe, or Etheridge, they all serve on our chamber board as well, as does the county executive. And the way that we do economic development and really chamber life is really holistic. We want to look at the big picture, and because we know that politicians, they come and go, but there needs to be an institution, an organization that's always pushing. I like to say it like this, and obviously I don't go to the gym that often, but it's like we're the community's personal trainer. We always want to keep pushing. That's our job, and we want to help those that are in government govern. We want to help businesses. We want to help them succeed in so much as we can. So, but yes, it's a fun job. Been there 9 years now, and it's hard to think about, but we've seen the community change, and I'd like to think it's because organizations like ours.
Sure.
Well, you're certainly in touch with everything in the community, I think, probably better than most just because
Sure.
of your position. And you see a lot of things happening. And I was thinking about, we mentioned the Amish and the stretch, the diversity between high tech and just in plain simple living that's both here. And one of the things that you talked about was this tourism thing.
Yeah.
Of course, people don't realize what a big draw the Amish community may be. But I did think about this too, Ryan. I want you to kind of elaborate on this. You're talking about something happens in the community, or some development, or somebody buys some piece of property, something happens. The ripple effect within the community that people may not realize just how many things are touched by when something does happen.
Yeah, no, it's impressive. I can most readily cite manufacturing impact. So for every new manufacturing job created, it actually adds an additional 1.74, I think is the technical or the exact number, but 1.74 jobs. So what that means is, when Modine says, hey, we're going to add a line and we're going to expand by X number of jobs, you can expect another X number of jobs, probably 1.7 times that, to support it. Now, where are those jobs at? Well, it's in hospitality, it's in services, it may be in utility, it may be in government, it may be in schools, whatever that looks like.
Right.
But therefore, it's not just that one-time investment creating one job, but it spins it off. And as we grow, we need more services, so therefore it diversifies the economy. For a long time, I think people in my industry, in the economic development industry in particular, they wanted to go land that mega project. They call it whale hunting, right? They want to go get the big whale. Our job is really, at least our approach to it, is really more about nurturing the coral reef and having those small fish to make sure that, okay, there's the clownfish over there and there's the pufferfish over there, and we want to make sure there's the octopus and the starfish, and it's beautiful.
I would be the clownfish if that's okay.
I didn't
give it to you.
I would like to be the clowfish.
That's fair. That's fair. But we want to nurture that tropical reef, and because we want a diverse economy, and I always said I'll be the clownfish, but Jeff, I'll join you there.
Okay, here we go.
But having the diversity maximizes that impact. Yeah. So if one sector is impacted by X thing happening in the world, the entire economy doesn't tank.
Sure.
If we have a more diverse economy, it makes us more resilient. And we've seen the results of having one big industry, right? And then it fluctuate or go down. You can look at the statistics over the last few decades, and just to cite Murray, they'd have maybe seasonal shutdowns or a holiday would hit. Well, the unemployment rate would be affected by that.
Sure.
In the same way, I got a buddy down in Oxford, Mississippi, and he talks a lot about how the unemployment rate skyrockets in the summertime because all the kids aren't working anymore because they're going back home, and the hospitality industry suffers.
Right.
Well, again, that's the risk of having one big thing. And we like to have a lot of little things.
Sure.
Well,
and that that leads to that question of, hey, people love Lawrenceburg and Lawrence County, and they love the lifestyle, right?
Yep.
Good Southern, wholesome lifestyle.
Yep.
And the balance there of keeping that lifestyle, as opposed to bringing in the larger industry.
Yeah.
And obviously that brings in more people. We're becoming a landing zone for a lot of folks coming in from out west. I've got friends from out west. I've got friends from up in the Northeast that have moved here, and there's a lot of draws here.
Yep.
I think that simple lifestyle brings a lot of people, but we can't sit on our laurels and say, oh, we love our lifestyle. We have to figure out. Excuse me. Yep. You guys have to figure out how to make that balance between the big industries, and to keep the simple, wholesome lifestyle that we live here in Lawrenceburg.
Yeah, I think whenever I hear this out in the community, especially, I always come back to the Bible verse. What does it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? In the same way, what does it matter if we keep growing and growing and growing just because growth, whatever that is, but we lose who we are. And we as a chamber, our job is to balance that or walk on that tightrope and balance those things, because I don't see them as opposing factors. Growth versus maintaining our identity as a community. I really see them as complementary. At the end of the day, I think what we want is we want our kids to graduate high school, maybe go to college, maybe go straight into the workforce, but we want them to put down their roots here. And I think that's what makes Lawrence County unique. Now, what I'm finding, however, is when I go out to eat, I'll run into somebody that I've never met before. And even more, or even more impressively, I'm not related to. So, that's, I can tell you, I was at the Pie Factory this weekend, ran into a guy that moved here from Montana. I was like, that's wild. Met a couple from Florida a few weeks ago, and people come out of the Nashville region because they're like, wow, places like this still exist. And so it is at the top of our mind, the front of our mind, when we're going after new industry or we're planning something, that we inject that sense of, hey, this is Lawrence County community, this is who we are, this has got to be the pinnacle, the priority in what we do.
There is I think a legitimate fear though.
Yeah.
Of losing some of that identity in rapid growth or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I hear it every once in a while, and even from my own mouth, I've said, I really like the growth, but are we? It's but I really but I reminisce about when it was a little more calm.
Yeah.
What I mean?
Sure.
But at the same time, if you go backwards or stand still, you die.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we have the one benefit, and it's right outside out front here. It's Highway 43.
Yep.
Right, and that is a major thoroughfare, and we see what happens out there on a busy day.
If you're like me, I avoid it like the plague. I don't typically try to hit it for lunch. I try to hit one of the cross streets.
Hit the cross streets. That's right. That's right.
When you were talking about that, Ryan, and we have experienced some growth with landing Magna and these places that have decided to build here. Do you ever worry about our resources or outpunting our coverage, as you might say?
Well, that's something that actually, when we were going through the process of recruiting Magna, the consultant involved actually told me to stop being so conservative. And I don't mean that in a political sense. I mean that in a sense of, they were asking, hey, how many people are within a certain amount of distance, and I always use smaller numbers because I don't ever want to oversell.
Sure.
I always want to undersell but overdeliver. That's kind of one of our things. And he said, listen, you have a much better sales pitch if you could just add this. And I'm like, listen, buddy, you're getting into the radius of Huntsville and Franklin, and I'm like, those people, some of them will drive, but not. You can't count on that. What you can count on is maybe a 30-minute or 30-mile radius versus a 90-mile radius, as an example. So, but there are other resources, not just people. There's, I think really top of mind, maybe power. When I say power, I'm talking about utilities, right?
Sure.
As we see more residential development looking, especially out in the county, they're running into problems with capacity with regard to water specifically. But we're very fortunate in Lawrenceburg, which is where you alluded to, or we've been talking manufacturing specifically. Most of the manufacturing operations are going to be in your cities, so Lawrenceburg and Loretto specifically, and that's because they have access to ample water, access to sewer, natural gas is readily available, and it's closer to electrical substations. And I just have to give a huge shout out to Vic Pusser, Lawrenceburg Utility Systems, and their entire team there, because we can't do what we do without them. We can't turn the lights on without them, right?
Sure.
But they have built out a system that is so reliable. When you think about, there's 6 substations in the county that pull power down from TVA. Back in the ice storm in the 90s, there was one, and the reason it was so catastrophic, that ice storm was, and we lost power for so long, is because there was only one substation. Well, now that we've got redundancy, that improves reliability, and by the same virtue, water, Lawrenceburg specifically is sitting on a huge amount of water, whereas in other communities surrounding us, Murray County as an example, they're really struggling with their water situation. And so we're well prepared. But
that's sort of the reason why I asked the questions, because I've heard some of those stories.
Yes.
And of course, water is a big deal.
It is. It is. I mean, think back thousands of years when civilizations pop up, they pop up along water. And in fact, Lawrenceburg is cited where it is because of the Shoal Creek, right? And that water access. So, but we're very mindful. If there's a company that comes in and says, "Oh yeah, we need 10 million gallons of water a day," well, that's not possible anywhere in the state of Tennessee, but it's almost possible here, but we wouldn't do that because that depletes our resources. Because at the end of the day, that multiplier effect, like we just talked about, we land a company that brings on more people, more housing. Well, we can't support the housing after that.
Right.
So,
You might support the industry, but then
Yeah.
you can't support all the housing.
That's right. That's right.
That's true. So we talked about industry, and,
Yep.
and I'm sure we'll cross back across
Sure.
that before we're all done here. Tourism. Now
Yep.
this is my heart. Okay,
Yep.
so this is the industry I work in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what we do mostly is take people out of the county, which is it's kind of counterintuitive,
Sure.
right? But the majority of what we're doing is taking people out to DC, New
Yeah.
York, wherever. And,
But they
and
all say when they're on their way back, there's no place like home.
there's no
Right.
place like
That's
home.
right.
That's exactly right. They love it, and what we love what we do. We
Yep.
love to take people out of the county to go see
Yep.
the country.
Mm-hmm.
We have run into it. It's so unique. We've run into friends in Georgia. One specific that I can think of. They do a yearly tour to Tennessee's Amish country. And they bring a busload of people. She said it sells out every year.
Yep.
We until we get into our little meetings with
Yep.
all the other motor coach companies and travel companies, we hear them talk about these things, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we come to Lawrenceburg."
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, I know.
So we don't think about that. So we are drawing, our Amish country. So there are other things that they draw. The things that you've mentioned,
Yep.
David Crockett State Park,
Yep.
and things of that nature. I love the Vaughn Museum.
Sure,
Now,
Yeah.
we've kind of talked a little bit about
Yep.
that. So there's so many things to draw here.
The old jail museum is
The
great.
old
Yeah,
jail
the history of
museum
the
is
community,
amazing.
That's right. It's interesting when we inherited tourism. So we got it back in 2015. The county said, "Hey, the chamber, y'all need to take this and run with it." And it took us a while to figure out what on earth it is because, as a local, and it's important to know, like everyone in the office at the chamber are locals. They're native to Lawrence County, and that's so rare. But that gives them, one, they're in tune with the community. But it did cause us to have trouble identifying what are those assets that visitors, people from outside of a 50-mile radius, that's what a tourist is defined as by the state of Tennessee. If you come from outside a 50-mile radius into an area outside of your normal commuter pathway, what brings them here? And it took us a while to figure that out. And then Keely Allen, who's our director of tourism, she took on that role in July. She's our very first full-time tourism person. Before it was just a part-time deal, but we think it's that important to our economy, to our small businesses, to our attractions, and it's also just to our story. I think Lawrence County has a story that the world needs to hear because it's Tennessee's slogan, America at its best. Well, I think Lawrence County's Tennessee is at its best. Mm-hmm. And when you look at what we've been through, look at the successes, look at what we've done, whether it's the college or Abigail's plan in the most recent years, there's something to be said about that. And if we do that appropriately, do it correcely, Jeff, I hope that helps your business, right? Because
Always, yeah.
Tourism is the front door to the community.
Absolutely.
So welcome that.
Yeah,
Sure.
We would. You talk about the Amish and the people that come to see the Amish. One of my guests not too long ago was Miss Karen Nitticus, and of course her grandmother, Miss Sarah Evans,
Yep.
was instrumental in putting that on the map.
That's right.
The Amish tourism on the map.
Yep.
And people, I've kind of forgot about that, but she really, really was, and got that in the public eye and even nationally.
Yep.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's no one out there just ready to tell our story, right? It takes an effort,
Sure.
to do that. And again, we inherited a lot from, or we stand on the shoulders of giants, is what I like to say. We just happen to hit it at a good time. But we've got the brand down, we've got the team in place. There's a committee now. It's called the Joint Tourism Committee, that made up of representatives from some cities and the county and some of our local area attractions. Just so we are all on the same page, because we don't just want to go and do. We want to make sure it's also serving a purpose of growing and improving the attractions and again telling our story.
Absolutely.
Well, you hit a little bit too on your staff.
Yeah.
And all of your staff being locals.
Yep.
So tell us about your staff.
Yeah, so I'll go back and I'll start with Jansen Kelly. Jansen is our controller. She's the one that makes sure that every dime that comes in is accounted for, every dime that goes out is accounted for. It's like we joke, she keeps us from going to jail is kind of the joke. So we file all the necessary reports with the comptroller's office, with the county, and everything like that. And so that's Jansen. She's been there. Actually, she's coming up on her 1-year anniversary, which we're excited about. Also celebrating her 1-year anniversary is Kristen Doss. Kristen. Oh man, she is just a light in the office. She does our marketing, and so she's in charge of all of the events, anything you see on the social media on the chamber side of the world, helping scheduling out ribbon cuttings, providing member services, and the like. I mentioned Keely. Keely is actually in October will be celebrating 5 years with the chamber. She actually spoke at Rotary on Friday, and she mentioned, I introduced her, and I mentioned, there are very few jobs she hasn't done at the chamber. She actually was hired in as economic development, and then when COVID came around and there was no economy to develop, she became membership, and she changed and grew that, and she's just she's a powerhouse when it comes to structure and driving things, and so that's why she is in tourism now to really hit it home, and that's her passion. She has just a great eye for things, and so when you see anything on Visit Lawrenceburg, the social media there, that's all Keely. She's getting to where she'll host people from out of town to maybe it's like a writer with like Southern Living. She'll host them, take them out to dinner. In the same way, we'll bring an industry in because that writer is going to come in and have a really good experience and then write about it, which then extends that storytelling. So that's one thing that Keely does. Of course, we have Mr. Ben Barnett. He is coming up on 3.5 years, maybe. It'll be 4 years in March, I think, since he's been at the chamber. He's now our director of economic development, and his primary job is to make sure that we've got good relationships with our ED stakeholders at the state level, at TVA. Whenever we get a company looking to evaluate some land we might have available, he's the one filling out what's called a request for information, which is typically a very long Excel spreadsheet. I really enjoy doing those too, but Ben does that on a full-time basis now, and typically we'll have about 100 of those a year to do, and it takes a while to fill those out depending on what the company needs. But more than that, like I mentioned, we're getting into residential and retail, commercial style development, more planning functions, and Ben. He again, being from here, he knows the needs, and then he can speak to those pretty good. And so he's really focusing on small business entrepreneurship, trying to help people out in that space too. And it's been good. And then I hope that. Oh, and last but not least, she's celebrating her 1-week anniversary is Maddie Hod. Of course, she's now in charge of membership. And so far so good. She's actually already added 2 members in the last week, and no surprise there. But we have a very young staff. I'm very grateful for that. We have a lot of energy behind us, a lot of good connection to the community, and we've grown quite a bit. When I started at the chamber in 2015, we had 4 professional staff, and today we have 6, and that's on purpose. We wanted to grow very slowly and methodically because we want to make sure that our members and the local governments are getting the best bang for their buck. And we think we provide a pretty good ROI. So,
let me ask you about something. You mentioned Ben's role in preparing these spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So there's an information request.
yes.
So tell us elaborate a little bit on that. You said there were maybe 100 a year. So how does that take place, and who are we talking about?
Yes. So traditional economic development is focused around industrial development, which is manufacturing or chemical processing, distribution, whatever that is. And no different than when a family is looking for a new community to move to. They might have a small checklist. It may not be in an Excel spreadsheet, but they have an idea of what they want, right? They want good schools. They want a safe neighborhood. They want nice parks, and they want enough restaurants around. And
So this is a potential business or industry.
yes. So let's say a manufacturing operation was looking around and they say, hey, we really need to enter the southeast market of the United States. let's say we need 5 megawatts of power. We're going to hire 150 people. Let's say they're all going to be welders. Well, they're not going to go into a community that doesn't have a good welding program or access to welding talent, right? And so there's a slew of databases that say, like, hey, Lawrence County actually is a great place for metalworking, for example.
Sure.
And that's just the first one that comes to mind. But yes, so there's a labor component, there's a power component, there's an additional utility component, and then there's the part of, do I want to be in a small town or do I want to be in a suburb? Do I want to be in an urban setting? And those are all things that we have to kind of story tell. But it's very much data oriented. But how that works, Jeff, is there's proactive and reactive ways for this. We're very lucky in the state of Tennessee that there's a team of people that go do the proactive recruiting. So they'll go to conferences in San Antonio or San Francisco or San Diego. I don't know why they did all the Sands, but anyway. But they'll travel even internationally, and they'll go meet with industries that are looking to enter different markets. And from those meetings, hopefully there's a follow-up that says, hey, yeah, we're interested in learning about available industrial buildings or industrial sites in your community. So that person at the state or at TVA, at the state they're called directors of business development, and at TVA they're called target market specialists. They'll get that email that typically says, hey, we want to learn more, here's what we need to know. And those people will kind of massage that to make sure that it makes sense, because sometimes they'll ask questions that aren't relevant for the community to have access to or what have you. But then they'll send it out and say, all right, hey, people in southern middle Tennessee, what sites do you have for this type of company? Well, let's say it's a company, like I mentioned earlier, that needs 10 million gallons of water a day. Well, we'll say, hey, sorry guys, we're not going to respond to this. But let's say it's a company that fits what we're looking for. Typically what we're looking for is 50 to 150 jobs. We want them, we'd love for them to be family-owned companies, but we want to make sure that their culture fits kind of how we do things here. And you can tell that pretty quickly. If it's someone coming in wanting to do, let's say, 7 12-hour shifts, that's not going to fly here anymore. So we'll get that spreadsheet and they'll say, hey, we need that tomorrow at 9 a.m., which means that we're going to have a very long night of sitting down, pulling data, doing research, most of which we have readily available. But every now and then they'll say, hey, we need, what's the average wage for someone that can TIG weld that has 3 years of experience? It's something very specific like that. And I'll be honest, we don't get every time the opportunity to respond to that, just because it's kind of like.
I guess
specific.
I'm fascinated by the number of requests that you sent, and I'm curious about that because it seems high to me.
Yeah. So over my time, it's basically been 100 to 115, and that really is dependent on your product that you have. So where Magna is, that's Team Lawrence Commerce Park. That's the name of that entire industrial park, and the county owned that for the better part of 20 years. It took a lot of work to get that industrial park what's called certified. Today, across the road on the north side of Hagen Road, we have another 151 acres that we now own and is also certified. And what that means is we've done all the environmental studies, we've done all the archaeological, historical studies, we've done geotechnical, wetlands. We know every type of bat that's in every one of those trees. Because when a company comes in, these are things that they're asking, and we have the answers, and that's what's great, and that's what makes it a much easier sell. And so because we're so good at doing that, and we know how to sell, the state and TVA really lean on us quite a bit because. First and foremost, their job is to sell the state or the valley at large.
Sure.
We get a part of doing that, right? We get to say, yes, we're on Team Tennessee. We want you here in Tennessee, of course, hoping that they come to our community first. But like you mentioned, the volume, about 100 and 115 a year is what we've been seeing. After we sold the Team Lawrence Commerce Park, we did see a dip just because our inventory is low. That's no different than when housing inventory is low or car inventory is low. But then also you have to factor in the fact that it's an election year. There are a lot of companies, especially foreign companies, that have decided like, hey, we want the information, we want to analyze it, but there will be no decision until January of 2025 or later. And so for that reason, we've seen a pretty low volume this year. I'm wanting to say maybe we'll hit 40 or 50, which is about half of what we normally see. That's very odd for us. That said, we're busy. We've landed 3 new companies in the last year.
But that's typical of an election year too.
It is very much so.
A presidential election year.
Yeah.
For sure.
Usually the slowdown would happen about July. It started in March of this year. So.
Well, the campaign started 2 years ago, so
That's very
Exactly.
true. That's very true.
so there you go.
Well, it's such a unique. It is such a unique election year.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yes.
think we all kind of feel that.
Yep.
We see it in our industry.
Yep.
Rent-Right sees it on their side.
Sure.
I feel like this year has been a little better year in
Yep.
some ways, but there are other things that just
Yep.
kind of it's very unique
Yep.
how it's changed.
Yeah. Access to capital is probably one of the biggest barriers we're seeing right now for any new business or anyone looking to relocate. I mean, that's just interest rates, right? And then inflation has caused a greater need to access for that capital. And so when we're talking to people looking to say, hey, what kind of business should I start? We're like, well, here we can tell you data that says, hey, we need X, Y, and Z company. But the startup costs are so much higher right now. And so I think, whoever the next administration is, that's going to be the biggest issue because guess what? You can't achieve the American dream if you can't start businesses. Right. So,
Yeah.
Sure.
What do you think is, of course, I know, everybody's focus a lot of times is on landing a new industry or that kind of thing, but we do see a lot, and God bless them, a lot of small business startups. And some make it and some don't.
Yep.
But we got a community that seems to try.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which I admire.
Yep. I think when you think about the national statistics for small business, it's a very grim thing.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to do.
Like it's very difficult. And what I've found, and I wish we could make this a tagline because I've found if you can make it in Lawrenceburg or Lawrence County, Tennessee, you can make it anywhere on planet Earth as far as business goes. I believe that.
Yeah.
And so that said, I still think there is this undercurrent of are they going to make it? I remember when Dunkin' Donuts opened as an example. It took a while for it to hit their stride, but ultimately they made it, and that's because like I said, I think if you can make it in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, you make it anywhere on planet Earth. You've seen what's happened downtown with new restaurants opening
Sure.
and proving the concept. The hotel, Best Western, that's another great example. We've never had an interior wall hotel, and a group of local investors, and again, your listeners may not know this. That hotel is locally owned, locally operated, and managed. It was locally built by folks locally, and it was furnished locally as well. And when you go in there, it is just Lawrence County through and through.
That's
There's
right.
Pictures everywhere, and it's amazing.
Well, that was my point. We got a lot of local entrepreneurs,
That's right.
big and small,
Yep.
who just keep hammering at it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It takes a special type of person to do and because it's hard. I mean, everyone sees the success, but not the hundreds of times failing going into that.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that we have folks that are willing to put their money where their mouth is. When they see a need, they're going to go meet it. But more than that, and I think this is just unique to our community specifically, just the generosity of those people too.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen.
It's impressive.
That's right. We need to hit the rumor mill.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Let's hit the rumor.
We can do that.
Absolutely.
Do you want to hit the rumor
Always
mill?
hit the rumor mill. Go ahead. Go
One
ahead.
of the latest ones is something's going on at Hardee's.
Okay.
Have you heard it? It was on Facebook.
Well, you're going to laugh at this, Jeff. I don't.
So I'm like, something's going on at Hardee's.
Something's
I'm like,
going on
what's
at
going on
Hardee's?
at Harde's?
I don't read Facebook that much. I mean, by virtue of my job, I do post a little bit, but I don't read it much. So tell me what's going on in Hardee's.
Well, it was all over the board that they were going to close down to remodel, or they was going to rebuild, or I'm serious. It was like
Interesting.
So I'm like, okay, so what's going on in Hardee's?
Yeah.
So they didn't check in with you then.
No, they didn't. And what I said, they don't need my blessing to do that. But no, I imagine, just like Taco Bell, I think the last, 20 years they remodeled twice. All these franchises are on a cycle that,
Yeah.
their corporate says, hey, you have to remodel or we want this look every, usually 8 to 10 years.
I have a very specific request for you.
What's that?
I want you to get in touch with the Burger King folks
The Burger King, okay.
and ask them to fix their sign.
Well, that's been a unique thing all the way
Sure.
around, right?
Yes.
We had Burger King.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the Burger King went away.
Yes.
Yeah. And
then Burger King has
came back.
reappeared.
They're
So
back
that's
at
right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're back
we're
at
excited, and a new group has bought this Burger King, and yes, they will be fixing the sign.
it. Amen. Bless their hearts.
That's quite
I've
exciting.
been worried
yes.
about that sign for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, that was a rather tame rumor mill, Jeff.
Well,
I know.
I'm
It's
just
just-
getting warmed up.
He's just getting warmed up. So we talked about elections and we talked
Yep.
about political leaders and things like that. So you talk about posting on Facebook. Well,
Yep.
it's quite often we go to Facebook and we see Governor Bill Lee is in town,
Yep.
or Senator Marsha Blackburn is in
Yep.
town. So we see these large scale
Yep.
political leaders, the folks that we see when we turn on the news, the national news. We see these faces. Well, they're right here in Lawrence County visiting. So when they come to visit, what's the general consensus from these folks?
Sure. Well, it depends on why they're visiting. I guess would be the best way to say it. I can tell you there was actually a very specific issue related to tariffs that Senator Blackburn needed to come in and address specifically, and her team did a great job doing that. And same thing, Senator Haggerty was here, I think, 2 weeks ago. Just wanted to see our manufacturing operations and check in because, he's hearing one thing in Washington, but to have boots on the ground to experience what's happening is a whole another conversation. The general consensus, however, is that our community, let me use some words that I can't tell you who said this, but they said, I wish every community was as easy to work with as Lawrence County. And I think that speaks volumes into who we are. Right? That's part of that culture thing that we don't want to change ever. But when it's Small Business Week and there's a meeting happening where the governor's team is scheduling things, and someone says, "Hey, Lawrenceburg, their square's got it going on. You ought to go visit." It matters. But here's the thing, and y'all know this: there's not someone in Nashville just twiddling their thumbs all the time saying, "How can we help Lawrence County today?" That's not happening. And that's why it takes good elected leadership. It takes good business leadership too to make sure that when there's an issue, it's not, we're not picking up the phone for the first time saying, "Hi, I'm Ryan. This company's having this specific issue." No. Part of my job is to make sure that people know, one, who we are, so that when we do call, they listen. And so that happened 2 weeks ago. There was a group out of D.C. They had a meeting in Nashville. Alliance for Automotive Innovation is what the group's called. And they said, "Hey, we want representation of a local community that has automotive suppliers." So they invited me to sit at the table with the Commissioner of Economic Development, both of our U.S. senators, and then the heads of GM, Ford, Nissan, Denso, Magna Government Relations was there. And I look around, I'm like, how in the world did a dude from Lawrenceburg, Tennessee get to sit at this table at this high rise in Nashville? Well, it's because we do a lot of things right. And so the consensus is, again, back to your question, is that we do a lot of things right and we do it well. And ultimately our success, and this is just politics, is their success, and so they want to show us off. And it's good.
It's a good point. Yeah, it's a real good point. Back to the rumor mill.
Okay, let's go.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
it's okay.
And I'm going to ask you about this because I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But it's come up for a couple of years or more now. The test track.
Sure.
Have you heard any more about that? Because every once in a while, somebody will tell me, "Oh, I heard that this is going to happen and that's going to happen," and somebody moved big, huge land, and I'm like, "Well, I'm not aware of it."
Right.
So,
yeah.
Can you set the record straight? Is there a test track or is there not a test track?
So as of now, the answer would be there's not a test track, and that doesn't mean that I'm saying it's not a viable thing. It's just the scale at which we as a community would have to get behind that is almost too much. And so I can tell you, I've been in meetings with about everyone you can be in meetings with, talking about the need for a proving grounds in the state of Tennessee. If the state of Tennessee wants to maintain its leadership in the automotive space, especially attracting more research and development jobs. Because here's the thing, we're really good at making things in Tennessee. And also, and not many people know this, but Nissan North America is headquartered in Franklin. Mitsubishi is now headquartered in Franklin.
That's right.
Of course, Ford and Louisville City in West Tennessee. And then there's other OEMs like Volkswagen who's bringing more engineering jobs to Chattanooga. There's a need for it somewhere in the Southeast. And there's a lot happening at a small scale. But at the scale at which, we studied back in 2017 and 18,
right,
nothing exists like that in the U.S. So point being, last meeting we had was with me, Mayor Lay, the county executive. We actually drove over to Chattanooga, met with Mayor Tim Kelly, met with Volkswagen's president, and we just said, hey, listen, I'm not sure if this is a viable thing, but as you bring engineers, as your needs evolve, keep us in the loop because you can't develop a 1,200-acre tract of land in Nashville. It's not possible.
Right. It's going to have to be outside the big city somewhere.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And so when I say no, there's not one coming, that's the truth, because there's no one pushing for it really right now, and there's no money behind it.
Yeah.
Now, again, its viability, I think
You're
it's
not talking about just here pushing for it. You're talking about the industry itself.
That's right. No, it would take. It would take everyone from the top down, from DC to Nashville to all the university systems, all getting behind it and saying, "Hey, we want to be the center of the automotive universe, and we want a proving grounds." What I'm finding is most OEMs, so original equipment manufacturers like GM or Toyota, Mazda, as an example, they operate their own test tracks on site, but this is really a shared facility that really helps elevate mobility and automotive research. And so we think it's viable, but I'll say it like this, and I mean this as nice as possible. A bunch of country boys can't bring a track to Lawrenceburg and operate it, because that's not our business. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Wait a minute, I beg to differ, sir. No,
Now, Jeff, we need to get you in on those meetings. I think you could pull it off.
Jeff has got this plan. I can see the wheels are turning.
That's right.
listen, have you been to Thunder Hill? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
We got a track.
Oh yeah.
That's right. So in the rumor mill, let's
Yeah.
let's kind of go along that track. So you personally, you're a local guy.
Sure.
Okay. What do you want? What do I
want?
personally? What do you want to see come to Lawrenceburg?
Oh gracious.
What's your vision?
Well, so at this point, let me go back, and y'all know Olivia White, or I hope you know Olivia White. She and I celebrated the grand opening of Zaxby's back in 2016 or 17, like just way too much. We said, we've arrived, we've made it. I said, I could retire because we got a Zaxby's, that was kind of the thing. And yeah.
I'm the same Waffle House for me.
Yeah.
Well, sure, right.
And that's in the rumor mill too, by the way.
Yeah, it definitely is. I get phone calls about that one all the time. But what I've learned is, we landed Zaxby's, we got Zaxby's, we got Dunkin' Donuts, and then we landed Craig. And what I found is that in my job, like there were these milestones that I wanted to hit, right? And we kept hitting them. And it was like, okay, what I've learned is this job's never going to be over. Someone else is going to have to step in one day, and they're going to have to steward it probably better than I have and can. But what I want to see at this point is this continual effort of just good planning and thoughtful planning. I want to see more connectivity between our parks. I want to see more walkability. I want to see better land use. I want to see more beautiful buildings built, because ultimately, not only it actually, and if you want to get real philosophical and holistic with it, I'm going to answer it like this. I want people very proud to be from Lawrence County, Tennessee. Because my generation, there wasn't any opportunity here when we graduated high school. Like, all the industries had gone out, nothing was happening. There's a sense of stagnation. I want people to say, yeah, like Lawrence County, Tennessee, that's where I'm from, and no matter where they end up. And what that manifests itself as is more jobs, more industry coming, and then therefore more homes, and then homes being built and families putting down roots, and then that means winning sports teams. I'm going to say it like that, and that's a political football I don't want to touch. But winning sports teams, nice green spaces, people living healthier and longer lives. That type of thing.
Family atmosphere.
That's right,
Yes.
and that's got to be the goal. Now, functionally, I think the next thing on the list, Jeff, may be a Waffle House, but we'll see.
We sure will. We sure will.
Store that away for a little later. My kids want Chick-fil-A. I'm just going to tell you. That's.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear it every day.
Yeah.
I hear it every day.
That's
but again, that's my
So
kids.
do I.
Yeah.
So do I. Not from my kids. I hear it from people that, when are you going to land us a Chick-fil-A?
Exactly.
It's-
Sure.
So anyway, my understanding about that franchise is, though, it has to be owner operated.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
It has to be. So it has to be someone who's willing to owner operate. They're not going to just plug one here.
Yeah. Franchising is very interesting because there's different, fees and royalties that the corporate gets.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you can own a franchise and be very, I guess, not passive, but you don't have to be there all day long.
Sure.
But you're going to pay for that.
Right.
At a Chick-fil-A, it's the cheapest franchise to open.
Yep.
but it's the most time intensive because you have to go to Chick-fil-A University, you got to do this, this, and this, and then you have to work there.
Yep.
And that ensures the quality because it's not just about your money, it's about your time. And that's what they're looking for to and put their culture in there. We've had a few folks make a run at Chick-fil-A trying to franchise, but our numbers just, when they did it, didn't make sense. And and we're our numbers are getting there. Our incomes our incomes are going up. Our population's getting where it needs to be. Our traffic counts are getting good. The barrier, like I mentioned earlier, is access to capital, and part of that access to capital has to do with land prices. Some people think that their land is there's a big chest of diamonds and gold somewhere on it, but that's just not true. You know.
Sure.
If you want to know about that, come see me.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. That's exactly right.
If you want to know about that, I can help you.
Yeah.
Very good. Ryan Egley from the Chamber, and of course Chris Davis from First Class Charter, and of course Rent Right. And this hour is being brought to you by Rent Right and First Class Charter, and a lot happening over there in your world. But in fact, I happen to, speaking of cronyism, my daughter works over there at Rent Right. She works over there a couple of days a week and handles the FedEx counter. You guys take FedEx packages.
Yep. We take FedEx packages. She is doing a fantastic job.
Very good
of
for her.
helping us with that. And we take anything you're shipping out FedEx, we take it over there.
That's awesome. It's been helpful to me a time or two, I promise.
Absolutely, 100%. It does for us too when we are having to send things out from the first class side of the world.
Great lawn and garden equipment, of course, those great Hustler mowers and Troy-Bilt products now as well. And just a fascinating lineup of stuff and good service over there at Rent Right.
Sure.
And, of course, the equipment rental is top of the list over there, man.
That's right. Skid steers, mini excavators, little bit of all of it. Stump grinders, trenchers, the whole 9 yards.
See, the Chamber of Commerce needs to put them high on the list of things that are available here in Lawrenceburg.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
Full-on equipment rental.
Very, very good.
That's right.
We got a couple of minutes left. So kind of, I guess, for the remainder of the year, what's the activities for the Chamber of Commerce?
So thinking about just the next few weeks in particular, like this Thursday, as I mentioned, there's a Chamber Coffee at the shelter. It's at 8 a.m. Out on West Point Road. Hope everyone can join us for that. Evening, there's the Young Professionals event. We're calling it the Smokehouse Social at Heine's Barbecue, and that's really designed for folks under 40 to come get together and network, get to know each other. Jeff, we'll make an exception. We'll make an exception. But
that's what I said.
Yeah.
I'm out of the mix on that one.
Yeah, but the next big thing is our 75th anniversary celebration, and that is on Friday evening, October the 4th. It's gonna be downtown Lawrenceburg. We have a great event planned, a nice steak dinner, just to celebrate the organization's 75-year history and to look back on those accomplishments, but also look forward. And so right now we have about 300 people registered. We are hoping for another 100 to 150, and we're talking a big celebration. And it's like I told my board.
Where will that be? Where will that be?
It's going to be along North Military, so we're going to shut down the street. The square will still be open.
Oh, okay, so it's on the street.
Yeah, it's a street party, if you will, but it's going to be more party than program. And I know that's going to disappoint everyone because everyone wants to hear every number that I can cite and tell you data, but
no, they don't.
I know.
Just send us an email.
I can do that. I can do that. But that's really the last big event for the year, of course, except for the Christmas parade in December. Mm-hmm. So, but once we get through October, I guess we'll all be holding our breath for the election, and then we'll just hit it hard in 2025.
Awesome, good. Chris, thanks for being here this morning.
Absolutely.
Ryan, thanks for being here.
Of course, buddy. Chris, thanks for having me.
And had a great conversation. We're going to have you back again.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to explore the rumor mill even further.
That could be its own segment sometime.
Yes. That would we could open up the phone lines.
Boy.
And explore all the possibilities.
That's tempting.
Yes, I think it'll be fun.
Well, it could be fun. That's for sure.
It'll be fun.
Some kind of fun.
Some kind of fun. That's right.
Some kind of fun. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll be back tomorrow morning, guys, so stick with us.
7FD Lawrenceburg. Broadcast services of Prospect Communications.
It's up to at least